Hey, thank you for joining me today. Today, let's look at how we're doing on the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, and it's going to be October edition. If you haven't heard of the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, also known as HRCYED, this is by Stephanie, a.k.a. QWERTY, on basically all the socials, but you can find her announcement video for this challenge on YouTube, and I will link it down below along with my playlist for my updates for every month so far. This runs from July to July, so it's not too late to get involved if you want to get involved. This is the bingo board, and we are looking to try and complete or tick off one of these prompts this month. And spoiler, we've done it, friends. So let's go through each of the prompts one by one, and we'll just discuss what we've read for these prompts. The first square is by the hundreds, and we've managed to fit in a 600 page book, and that is Anathema by Kerry Lake. This is a gothic, I guess romantasy. We have fae, we have magic, we have small town girl living in a lonely world. But no, so we follow our main character who goes into the woods surrounding her town after she is accused of basically kind of witchcraft, and she gets thrown into the woods, and she ends up in going for a portal into the Fey world, and she finds out that there's a whole Fey world that she wasn't really aware of. There's a possibility that there's more to her than meets the eye. You know, it hits a lot of those brilliant tropes. You've got like the one bed trope, etc. And her and the love interest, I think, have quite a fun dynamic. It's a dynamic that I wish the main characters had in Quicksilver. But yeah, I like how their relationship blossoms over the course of the book. It is definitely gothic, which is great because I do enjoy a gothic book. And I just loved the ending, this absolute cliffhanger. I'm very excited to pick up book 2, but I've heard a lot of people say that book 2 does not quite reach the heights of book 1. Sarah from Wicked Reading read the first book, Anathema. The second book's called Eldritch, I believe, and I think the series is called like The Drowning Woods or something like that. But she read the first book in a vlog, and it made me like run to pick it up from my shelves. And then Sarah read the second book and gave it like a 2-star, and so that has me a little concerned, but I definitely want to pick up the second book too. But anyway, so now we've just got a book from 70 plus pages left to fill in, so I've done myself a bit of a disservice there, but it's fine, we'll get it done. Next is 24 hours. I've not done this challenge yet. It is to log in as many books as you can in a 24-hour period from when you wake up to when you go to sleep. There's no set amount of books. It could be one, it could be multiple. I've just put kind of like 3 in here because I think that would try to be my goal, because if I'm doing a 24-hour thing, I might try and push myself to read a bit more. I'm actually hoping to do this in November. I have ticked off the horror subgenres. We've done so well, friends. Yes. So for this one, you choose a genre and then you read 6 subgenres within that genre. I chose horror, and I have managed to complete it in October by reading Nettle and Bone, which I personally feel is like a cozy horror. It's dark fantasy with horror elements, and for me it's very cozy horror. And this is a like fairy tale retelling. It's by T. Kingfisher, and we follow the third daughter, like the third princess. Her oldest sister marries the prince for a political alliance from another kingdom, and then her sister turns up dead. And then so the middle sister marries the same prince, and our main character Mara finds out through her, the middle sister, the one that's still living, And the prince is very abusive, and he is determined to get a male heir for the throne. And all of the female children that his wives are having for him, like his first wife being her older sister, are passing, unfortunately. And so Mara's sister says to her, you know, once I've had a son for him, my usefulness is done, he will kill me. And the only thing that kind of stops the abuse is when I'm pregnant, he kind of lays off a bit, but then it gets worse. Like when the baby's born, it's like he's making up for it. And so her older sister is convinced that she's either going to be killed by him or die in childbirth. And she says to Mara, you know, you have to realise that you would be next if I die, because you are the next princess. You'll be the next wife. And so Mara's like, okay, I'm going to kill this man. And she goes off on a quest to kill the prince, and she meets various people along the way. She has a witch. I think she's like a swamp witch or something, a fairy godmother, a retired knight, a demon chicken. There's just like a bit of a crazy crew that go along on this personal quest to go and kill the prince. And it was a really good adventure. There were some really creepy elements. Perfect. And I actually discussed this book more in one of my Hello Weekend vlogs. I'm going to say it was vlog number 3 for weekend 4 possibly, but I will link the playlist for you to check out. I did not add to my series Stairway. I thought I did. We did not add to the series Stairway. I thought we had. I read Let's Split Up and Be Right Back by Bill Wood, which are like YA slashers, and they were really fun. And at the time I read them, there was no discussion of there being a third book, and then literally like a week later the third book was announced, so I had to take them back off. I had to put them in for this, but I had to take them back off. So yeah, but I have started another book, or rather I've read a book in November, which is the start of a duology, so I'm going to endeavour to read the second book of that duology within this year, so that can tick this off. But we'll talk about that at the end of November. For award season, sadly I've not put any more in here, and I'm quite disappointed with myself actually, so I need to get some more on that. For award season, I am reading books from the various Spiffbo years, which is a self-published fantasy blog off. Spiffbo, something like that. And so they're all self-published books, and I have gone through and picked out some, like you need to do a winner, some runners-up, some finalists, etc. So yes, my TBR game, we're going to ignore the fact that that July book is still not read. We are making our way through with this one, friends. The problem is the idea of this TBR game. It's a spinner wheel. I do it on TikTok, so make sure to follow me there if you want to watch it. I have a spinner wheel for my physical TBR. I have a spinner wheel for my audio TBR because they're both humongous. I'm not even going to look at my digital TBR. That's just a separate issue. And each month I spin. The idea was each month I spin for a physical and an audio. But you will see July was the last time I did a physical, because I have actually been stuck on that book since then. And so much of me is saying I need to DNF this book because I don't even think I'm a quarter of the way through. But the problem is I was enjoying it, and when I'm reading it, I'm enjoying it, but nothing is telling me to pick it up. I think I'm going to have to decide by the end of this month what I'm going to do with that book, if I'm going to DNF it or not. Because it's just sitting there. It's been sitting there since July. That is crazy. But my October spin was to read Henry V by Dan Jones. This is a biography of the warrior king from the medieval times. I don't know a great deal about our previous monarchs and stuff. The non-fiction I read tends to not really follow like royal family or anything like that. This was a delight though, and it was narrated by the author. I have the physical book as well, so I got to tandem it, see like some images as we went along. There was so much questionable things happening, but Dan Jones does make the point of, when you look at a medieval king, you have to question not by today's standards but by what a medieval king was expected to do and be. So a lot of the decisions he made, or like the wars he partook in, you know, if they were happening now, you would hope that his people would be a lot more vocal about it. But in like the medieval era, they needed a different type of king. Dan Jones says at the beginning that a lot of books about Henry V just follow his reign as king, but this one goes from childhood, like from birth to his death. He doesn't even become king till like halfway through the book, and I think that was a great choice because you can really see like why some decisions he made as king were made. Expected to do a lot of things and take on a lot of responsibility as a child. At, I think it was 14, he was sentencing people to death on behalf of his father, and that just like lines the way for what kind of king he did eventually become. It was fun. I want to read more by this author, especially in a audiobook sense if they are narrated by the author, because he was just a really good narrator. It was like a perfect way to consume this book. For the last 10 years I haven't put any books in here yet, so if you haven't watched any of my updated videos before, we are reading a book that was at least a long list nominee in the horror category for the Goodreads Choice Awards each year, and I'm doing it from 2016 to 2025. So in like a week or so I'll be able to pick out what book we'll be reading for the 2025. It might even be a book I've already read, maybe, because I have been keeping up to date with some recent releases, but no more have been added as of yet. Next, we have completed the adaptations. Go us, look at us go. So I managed to finally tick off this prompt by putting in The Devil and Daniel Webster. This is by Victor Bennett or something. Stephen Vincent Bennett, I think. It's a short story and it follows a man who has sold his soul to the devil, and then he has a lawyer and they are trying to get him out of the deal. I read it because I was reading books that various Simpsons Treehouse of Horror segments were based on, and in Treehouse of Horror #2 there's a segment where Homer sells his soul for a donut, and that was based on this, so I read this book. And then when I was looking into it a little bit more, I found that it has been made into a musical, so I did have another book earmarked for this. I was actually planning on reading Alice in Wonderland, but this fit that, so I popped it in. So that's perfect. We also read Dracula, which was the option for play. So Dracula was, oh, it was a ride, I tell you, and it was not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more I thought there would be more Dracula in it. It is written through various like journal entries and letters. I was going to say emails, but definitely not emails, from the human characters that are involved in this storyline. And so they're talking about Dracula, and he isn't actually a kind of like a physical character within it for quite some time. They're just discussing what he could be and just talk about their lives and stuff. So Dracula himself isn't within the book very much, and I thought it would be a lot more of him within the book. And I also thought there would be a lot more of him wreaking havoc in Whitby. I used to live near Whitby. I went to university near there, and I've been to quite a few of like the Dracula experiences and stuff there. So I thought that Dracula in Whitby was a lot more of the story, but it was not. And I think this book, I don't know if it was the intention or whether it was inadvertent, but it was quite comedic. There were a lot of elements, and there was a lot of moments where I did laugh out loud. So yeah, and I was introduced to the character Lucy. I'm hoping to read Lucy Undying this month. So it's cool that I got to read about her actual characterization quite recently, and now I'm going to read Kirsten White's adaptation of her, so that'll be interesting. We then completed it by reading Pet Sematary by Stephen King. And this was a book I read for the Treehouse of Horror segment vlog. I will link it above. This was an interesting one. I have my full thoughts over there in the reading vlog, but the horror in it was not what I thought it was going to be. So I think I've watched the like 80s version, like film of it. I don't know, film adaptation. I don't know if that was the first one. I'm going to say original, and when I say the original film, I mean the one from like the 80s. I don't know if there was one before that. And I'm quite certain I watched the most recent remake as well. When I say recent, I think it's maybe like 5 years old. I don't know. If you don't know what this is about, a family moves into a house and it has a big bit of land, and their neighbour who lives opposite them tells them that there is a pet cemetery on their land, and he takes them to see it. And between their two houses is a very busy road that has a lot of delivery lorries, and Judd, who is the old man that lives opposite, says that the road has claimed a lot of animals, and true to form, the family's daughter's cat gets killed on the road when all the family are out of town except the husband. And so he and Judd take the cat to the pet cemetery, bury it, and the cat comes back to life. He's different, but he is back to life. And that is where we learn what the cemetery can do. And Judd says it's for animals only, like pets only. We do find out that a human has been buried there before, but it's very frowned upon because that human was just not right when he came back. And then there's the family's smallest son, who unfortunately gets hit on that road, and the dad decides to bury him in the cemetery, and the child comes back, and the child coming back is literally just a few chapters right at the end. So it's this massive build up. I thought the horror was very much going to be like the zombie element of it, and I feel like in the films they really pushed the zombie element of it, like him coming back and like killing them or whatever. The children's ages are the same age as my children. My son is 7 and my daughter is 3, so it was really hard to like read it knowing they're like picturing my kids in those roles. And the horror was actually just like this entity that kind of embodies their bodies when they bring them back. Basically, like this entity of whatever it is uses the little boy's body as like a vessel, like a puppet. And that was the horror of it. It wasn't what he did when he was like a zombie. It was more that, like, imagine losing your child and then your child coming back and talking like an adult, and just someone else using their face and their body. Yeah. Oh, it really got to me. I did feel a bit sick. It did tear me up. Yeah, this book was just, I didn't expect to react as much as I did. Basically, we managed to tick this off in October, which was absolutely fantastic. The next square is Disability Rep. I have already completed this. We did this in July. There's a reading vlog for reading these, and then for our Heritage Month books, you'll notice I've not put in my October one yet. I have not finished this, the Hispanic Heritage book. So I actually have it right here. I'm reading Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez, and I'm so not very far in this at all. I don't know why. I'm really enjoying it, but damn, do I fall asleep when I'm reading this. My goal is to get this finished in November though, and then my November Heritage Month book, it's Indigenous. It's for an Indigenous authored book, and I have plans to read is it called Shinalida? It's by Darcy Little Badger. It's the prequel to HRCYED, which I absolutely adore, so I'm very excited to read the prequel, so I will be picking that up this month. So my plan is to read that, and this month to tick off those Heritage Month books and get up to date. For our translation challenge, we have popped in another one. So I've put in Killing Stalking. I've put in volume 2, I believe. It was originally in Korean, and this was like a webcomic type thing, and it's now available in like bind up volumes. There's 8 of them, so I've finished number 4. I'm halfway through. I do not recommend this series in any way, but I am somewhat addicted to it. Jordaline from Jordaline Reads recently did a reading vlog of reading them all, and her emotional state for it, I think, very much sums up these books. I will link it down below if you want to go check it out. She is so fun and I love her reading vlogs. This follows 2 characters who, one of them's a stalker who is obsessed with the other, like in love with him. The one that he's obsessed with is a serial killer. Bum breaks into his house, he gets caught, and then he finds himself in a situation of being chained up in a basement like the women were before him. It's a big long thing. They're very toxic. There is so many trigger warnings and content warnings galore. There is, I don't know why I'm still reading this. There's something so addicting about this, but I don't know. It's just so incredibly toxic. Please check content warnings before you even consider looking at this. I also read another book that was originally in French, but I've already used French in this translation challenge, so I couldn't put that in. Around the World, we've managed to pop one in the Australia tab by reading Curses and Cold Brew by Ali K. Mulford and K.L. Morrison. So a.k.a. Mulford is from New Zealand, which is one of the countries listed in the Australia prompt for this. And this is the second in a series. It's a rom-com, paranormal rom-com series, and it's called Maple Hollows, something along those lines. And it's like the cinnamon spice cafe series or whatever. You know, it's like the kind of standard idea for romance series, in that they're all interconnected couples in the same town, so you can technically read them in any order. And this follows Iris, who we were introduced to in book 1. She is the roommate of one of the love interests in book 1. It's dual POV. So we have Iris, who is a witch, and then we have Romana, who is a demon. And technically they shouldn't be like hanging out, because Romana obviously makes deals for souls, and in this town it's like a Halloween all year round town. That's how they get around with all the supernatural beings being able to just live out in the open, and tourists come and think it's like a gimmick that the town does. So Romana lives in the town, and she makes deals to collect souls, and someone is getting the souls before she has a chance to collect them. And her and Iris have had a deal previously, and Romana kind of likes Iris. She finds her a bit annoying, but she likes her, and Iris is a bit bored with life, so she starts sticking her nose into Romana's like issues with like this person or whatever still in her souls, and they end up working together and getting closer. It's cute and sapphic and fun. I really recommend reading these. I mean, this is the newest one out, so there's only 2 at the moment, but I do recommend reading them in publication order, because I just think you get more for the characters if you do it in that way around. For the even bigger rainbow challenge, you'll see we're still struggling. The only one we have left is a rainbow on the cover. I have not come across one on my shelves yet. If you do have any recommendations for books with rainbows or rainbow colours on the cover, please let me know in the comments, because I could really do with some help with this one. And then for make a quote with a book, the the idea was you picked a quote and then you have to build the quote using words on the books. I think it has to be titles, maybe it can be authors as well. So I have a Batman quote, which is, "Why do we force us? So we can learn to pick ourselves up." And this is where we currently are. And we managed to fit in another one this month. So we did Into the Dark We Go. This is like a gothic thriller. It was, I think, a little too long. It's a debut, if I remember correctly. It was a little too long, and the characters were annoyingly idiotic in their decisions. I think there's like only so much you can take before you just get fed up of characters. But apart from that, like, the atmosphere was really well done. There were a lot of choices I personally wouldn't have made, but I'm also not an author, so what the hell do I know? But yes, I have my reading thoughts in a Hello Weekend vlog. I believe the first one. Again, I will link that playlist down below. For spooky creatures, we've managed to pop a few more in, so we've actually only got 2 left to do now. So obviously for vampire, we've popped Dracula in, the Vampire Daddy. And then for other, I've popped in The Scold Crow by Grace Daly. This is another one I read for a Hello Weekend vlog, and this is a horror, like a folk horror, but also comedy. It's kind of like, it reminded me a little bit of like T. Kingfisher's horror, you know, that horror that is unnerving and makes you uneasy, but it's also funny. The main character in this, Breege, is just so snarky and so fed up, and I loved it. So Breege is a young woman. I think she's like early 30s, and she's always like suffered with bad periods and stuff, and she thought that she might have like endometriosis. I can never say that word. And she goes for surgery for that, and they don't find anything. And then unfortunately from that surgery, everything starts getting worse and worse. So she has recently become extremely chronically ill, like physically chronically ill, but also, you know, like migraines and the pain and the exhaustion that comes from it. And this has flipped her life entirely upside down. She's unfortunately lost her job. She can no longer afford rent. And she's kind of lost a lot of her friends. She only really has like one very close friend now, and she has a very abusive history featuring her mother. Her dad is missing slash past at this point. He ran away with another woman when she was a child, and she never saw or heard from him again. She was raised by her mum, who was very abusive, and she's been no contact with her mum for quite a while. And prior to the start of the story, her mum has gone missing, and so she's been legally declared dead, and Breege has inherited the house. And as she has no job and she cannot afford her rent, she decides to move into her childhood home, and it does kind of reignite a lot of her memories of living there and being with her mum. And then stuff starts happening in the house. So there's like a Jesus picture, and she takes it down and it keeps popping back up, and she finds it in the fridge and stuff, and just various kind of spooky, haunting-y things. And she starts investigating it a little bit more, and sometimes she's not too sure if it's just from where she took a load of painkillers and she's been moving things around. And I think this was a good version, or a good take on like the unreliable narrator. I often don't like unreliable narrators because it's usually just women being gaslit, or written by men as drunks or something. So I really liked how it was approached in this. I believe that this also might be a debut, possibly, but I loved it, and the ending was really, really fantastic as well. And then for Become the Avatar, with this prompt, I had earmarked books that had the various elements in their titles. But I read A Theory of Dreaming by Ava Reed, and all of the water on that cover. I was like, oh, perfect. Let's just do the covers, because you have the option of doing the word or the like an image on the cover. So I've popped a theory of dreaming in there for water, and so the rest of the elements I'm going to look for them on covers. But a theory of dreaming is the second book in the, I think it might just be called a theory or a theory of series. The first one was a theory of, I can't actually remember what the first one was called now, but it's like a fantasy dark academia. And in this book we pick up not long after the first book, and it very much deals with the fallout of the events that took place in the first book. That's all I can really say about it. I really enjoyed it. In this book we had two POVs, so we have Effie and we have her love interest. In the first book it was just Effie, or we might have got one or two one-off from the love interest. And I just really I enjoy a book that tackles the idea of like the trauma that would lie there after you've been involved in a big event, because often books just end off with the events happened, they've won whatever it was, and maybe they'll have an epilogue of them happily ever after, but most characters are going to be carrying some sort of trauma from that, and in this we really dive into it. I love Ava Reed's writing style. I know it's not for everyone, but it is for me, and I really love this. We already completed the Any Other Readathon challenge. We did the July Noir in July, so that is a reading vlog, so go us on that one. And last month, i.e. September, we completed the animals prompt with these, so that's great. We're doing really well actually. For the even bigger or even queerer, even bigger queer alphabet, even queerer alphabet, even bigger queer alphabet, I think it is. Anyway, for this prompt, I wanted us to be able to finish this last month, and I only read one. The two I'm missing, I do have books earmarked for that, and I'm hoping to slot them in November's reading. Yes, so Icarus, we picked up for Intersex, and this is by K. Ankrum, and this was a retelling of Icarus, kind of loose reimagining of Icarus in a more contemporary world. So we follow Icarus, who is the son of an art thief, and he is being trained by his father to he's always been like his father's assistant, and he's been trained to basically take over when his father can't do it anymore. So he has always had to keep himself separate from like school. He's only 17, so from his peers at school and stuff. His mum died when he was a child, so it's just him and his dad, and his dad is kind of quite emotionally distant and abusive, and it's about him kind of finding a way to be himself, a way to like fight for himself, and just to try and build a life that he wants and a life he can be proud of. Your favourite HRCYED 1 prompt. We've not done any of this yet, but I will be doing the 5 books by 5 booktubers for this one. For by book challenge, we didn't add anything to this in October. No, I don't believe we did. You know, that's easily going to be done through my reading. And then for new releases challenge, I mentioned earlier I read Be Right Back by Bill Woods, which is like the YA slasher, and that was my October new release book. It was so fun. It's perfect for fans of Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream Queens, Fear Street, that kind of vibe. These books are amazing, and as I said, Bill announced there will be a third book coming out in October next year. The next prompt is one I've made no progress on, and I need to be resolving that soon because this is going to be a hard one, and it's to finish 10 series that I started before 2025 because my series tracker is out of control. I've got to be at least 100 books sitting there at the moment. I need to finish some of these series. You know, saying, oh yeah, I can easily finish 10. Not all of them have just one book sitting there, you know, so I've got to sort that out. And then for non-fiction, obviously I popped in Henry V, which I read. That was a historical biography. And then I also read, it was a reread, but I read In Defense of Witches, Why Women Are Still on Trial by Mona Charlotte. This, luckily I had enough points built up to be able to use a reread. This is a kind of discussion on various elements of like the witch trials and how we can still see that in how women are treated to this day, with regards to the expectations of how they should look, like their appearance, how they should be married, how they should be expected to act, how they should be expected to age or not age, various things. And so it isn't so much about witches, which did disappoint me the first time I read it, but this second time, because I knew what it was going to be, I was able to just take a lot more from it, I think, and it was a good reread. So I'm pleased that I managed to fit in a reread that I first read it a few years ago. So yeah, Hugh's recommendations. We've not done any of Hugh's recommendations yet. I have earmarked some books for it, but we've not read them yet, so that's a future prompt that we will make our way through. So yeah, there we are. I think we're doing pretty okay for the end of October, because it's only 4 months, July, August, September, yeah, 4 months, and we're not doing too badly. I think this time last year with HRCYED 1, I was already struggling on the struggle bus, and then I think by January this year I was just like, I cannot do this challenge. And this year I'm doing so much better. I definitely spent more time planning it, more time ensuring I'm fitting the books into my TBR, and the spreadsheet that Stephanie did for us this year, she provides it for free, has really helped me. I cannot explain how much it's helped me. So yeah, that is where we are at the end of October, and I'm looking forward to seeing where we are at the end of November. This month I am doing a NetGalley November challenge for myself to try and get through some of my NetGalley books that are sitting there. So I'm going to be seeing how many of them I can fit into various prompts, which is exciting. So if you have made it to the end, make sure to leave me any recommendations that you have for rainbows on the cover or rainbow colours on a cover. Let me know if you are taking part in HRCYED, and if you don't have anything else to say, just drop a recommendation of your favourite autumn or winter activity in the comments, something I can go and do when I just want a nice day to myself. And thank you so much for joining me. Follow to keep up to date on my HRCYED journey, or follow to watch my NetGalley November journey. Let me know if you need to read your NetGalley books so that I know I'm not alone. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you soon, friends. Bye.